The furloughs of federal employees and other cuts under sequestration have begun. As nearly 20,000 Oklahoma Civilian Department of Defense employees watch their paychecks go down, thousands of children will be left out of the Head Start program, and hot meals for the elderly will be cut back. There is growing international pressure on Congress to find new ways to trim the budget without such harsh impacts on the economy and people.
The International Monetary Fund spent months analyzing the U.S. economy and issued its report recently on what to expect for fiscal year 2013 and 14. IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde was blunt in her assessment of cutbacks through sequestration, calling them inappropriate and damaging to the short and long-term economy.
And the effects of the sequester and deficit reduction more generally are already affecting the economy. The deficit will likely decline by 2.5%, which is very significant, and that will, in our view, shave 1.25 to 1.25 percentage points of growth.
The recommendation from the IMF: find a new approach to trimming the federal budget and reducing the deficit.
Repeal the sequester and adopt a more balanced and gradual pace of fiscal consolidation. This would help the recovery at a time when monetary policy, which has been very helpful, has now limited room to support it much further.
The monetary policy she mentions is the ongoing purchase of billions in U.S. debt by the Federal Reserve that holds interest rates down. Unwinding that policy, the IMF warns, must be done very carefully. For Jody Chase, a firefighter at Tinker Air Force Base, the effect of cuts under sequestration means more than just economic impact. It will mean 19 firefighters will no longer be on duty at any given time on base.
They've reduced that number to 17 from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night. After 11 p.m., it drops us all the way down to 13. Dropping down to that 13 really puts the community and our firefighters at an enhanced risk.
So if the firefighters have more than one call to respond to at the same time, they will have to look outside the base for help.
We'll call for a mutual aid. They'll send a unit from off base to respond, and that could be upwards of 20 minutes before we get any kind of help on scene.
Chase is facing 11 furlough days as the Defense Department has found ways to make other cuts to reduce the number of days off without pay. And while that means paychecks go down, he is looking ahead 2 months and seeing even bigger sequester cuts coming in the next fiscal year.
We're concerned about not just the furloughs this year, we're concerned about what's going to happen next year, what's going to happen the year after, because it just seems that neither side wants to give.
But compromise in Congress appears snarled in politics. With the August recess nearing, that only leaves September for Congress to come to grips with the 2014 fiscal year budget. And the House and Senate are far apart on even where to start.
The two sides need to sit down and actually hammer out a common number. You could do what's called an omnibus bill, where you do all government spending. This isn't the best way, but you would at least not do a continuing resolution.
4th District Congressman Tom Cole knows well the impact of sequester cuts. His district includes the state's 2 largest military installations, Tinker Air Force Base and the Fort Sill Army Post.
50% of these cuts are in defense, and defense is only 17% of the federal budget, and spread it through the rest of the budget. It would be a much more manageable thing.
The projected federal budget deficit for the current fiscal year has been falling steadily, but the IMF says it's dropping too fast and is slowing economic growth.
Slow down. There's no need to contract the deficit by 2.5%. It's very heavy on growth, and it really impacts by about 1.5%, maybe a little bit more, particularly if it picks up in the second quarter of 2013.
But Congressman Cole likes seeing the deficit fall and wants it to go down even more.
This deficit this year, while it's down to about $650 billion, is still the bigger deficit than any other president's ever had in a single year, other than the previous 4 that President Obama had.
As far as compromise is concerned, Congressman Cole sees the Senate and White House as the ones who are in the way of solving the issues created by sequestration.
And the Senate has never passed the bill, and the president's never made a recommendation as to what he would propose that's different from sequestration. If both sides have been stubborn, at least the Republicans have acted twice, and neither the president nor the Senate have acted at all.
The one point in the IMF report that Congressman Cole does agree with is that entitlement reform is necessary, but they disagree on how to accomplish it.
We're also saying hurry up, because there are long-term measures that will be critical for the US economy that need to be taken now, particularly concerning entitlement.
I think entitlement reform is actually the name of the game. That's where most of the money is. I mean, we spend a lot more money collectively on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security than we do on defense.
There is speculation that Congress will be unable to reach any deal on a new budget and will settle instead for a continuing resolution. That would keep spending and sequestration cuts in place. Congressman Cole sees a possibility of a continuing resolution to get the nation through the rest of the calendar year, but he thinks somewhere into fiscal year 2014, a deal will be made.
There's better ways to reduce spending. We've put them on the table. So far, the President, Democratic Senate have not responded.
Tinker firefighter Jody Chase just hopes Congress realizes real people are bearing the brunt of the inability of politicians to find compromise.
We're just hoping that Congress and Senate can come together and work something out, compromise with each other for the betterment of federal employees and the country.